Welcome to Riverview Conversations. This is Jason.
And this is Phil.
And this is Tyler.
And today we are going to continue. We've arrived at the spot that we've been anxiously waiting for. And this story, it rates up there. It has to be one of the top 5 stories in the Bible that I like. I mean, this story is so awesome and has so much going for it. So would one of you guys like to start reading? We're going to go from 21 to verse 43 to the end of the chapter here.
Well, maybe you could read to verse 29, Tyler, and I'll pick up with verse 30.
Yeah, sure. Mark chapter 5, verses 21. Jesus got into the boat again and went back to the other side of the lake, where a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. Then a leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, arrived. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, pleading fervently with him. "My little daughter is dying," he said. "Please come and lay your hands on her. Heal her so she can live." Jesus went with him, and all the people followed, crowding around him. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay them. But she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, "If I can just touch his robe, I will be healed." Immediately, the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition.
Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone out from him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. And then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." While he was still speaking to her, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use troubling the teacher now." But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just have faith." Then Jesus stopped the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing. He went inside and asked, "Why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead, she's only asleep." The crowd laughed at him, but he made them all leave, and he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened, and then he told them to give her something to eat.
That is an awesome story. Are you ready to dig into it?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you think of? You mentioned something last week, Jason. Jesus got in a boat, left a crowd, went across the lake, and then came back to a crowd.
Yeah.
The first thing I see here is this crowd. How did all these people communicate to know that Jesus is coming? That's always kind of boggled my mind. The communication system, let me give you an example. We were in Africa. I went to a store. I needed to buy some tin sheets for the roof. And guy says, "I'll have them delivered to you." And I'm like, "You don't know where I live?" He goes, "Yeah, I do. I know exactly where you live. I'll have them delivered to you." I'd only been in country about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And this guy knew where I lived,
So, you've heard the joke, there's the telegraph for communicating, there's the telephone, and then there's there's a variety of versions of this. One is tell a woman, another is tell an Adventist. and they're all reasonably effective ways of communicating very rapidly.
Yes.
I think that's just true. And there's something different, that in an environment like, I don't know, I guess in the last 20 years or so, we've kind of changed. There's been so much content that we're absorbing. It's not just pick up a newspaper. It's every day you've got a never-ending feed of news on your device, whatever device that is. And that's new. Like it used to be, you get to the end of the newspaper and that there's no more news for the day. And, we've got multiple channels of news on the TV if you're subscribed to some TV channels. YouTube has a never-ending stream of possible news. Plus, you have your Facebook and your Instagram and all the gossip places, and there's texting and so many ways to communicate nowadays. And it's instant and it's constant and it's just so much, and so things can get lost in that. And yet, like back in the day, they don't have all of those things, and so news that's different, something that's unique, rises to the top in the communication really quickly.
Yeah. So the story starts out with a local leader. His name's Jairus. And he comes to Jesus. And here is where I like to look at the emotions of the people in the story. Jairus comes to Jesus and he falls at his feet, pleading fervently with him, "My daughter is dying." I don't know if you've had this experience with any one of your kids, but twice in my life, I've had an experience where I honestly believe my children were dying. One, we were on a trip. We were coming through Louisville, Kentucky, and my daughter was sick. It turned out to be food poisoning, but I mean, she was as limp as a rag. She wasn't breathing. And I'm racing through Louisville trying to find medical help. And the other time, 35,000 feet above the air on our way to Africa, my son has a seizure, grand mal seizure. And he's turning blue. We don't know what's happening. This man, his daughter is dying.
Yeah.
And he comes to Jesus. And the thing that when I was talking to my friend, our friend, on Sabbath about this, he said, "Phil, this guy lost everything." He was a local leader in the synagogue, and the Jews did not like Jesus. And he went and bowed down at the feet of Jesus, begging for help. He probably lost his position in the synagogue. The social stigma of what he had done, he just gave it all up for his daughter. And, just totally humbling himself and coming to Jesus, and in a way, recognizing that Jesus is the Son of God. And so they start on their way. Now, it says the people followed, crowding around him. Now, there's two words. There's two places this story is in the Bible. Mark and Luke also tells it. One of them uses the same word that they use for crushing grapes to describe this crowd.
like
Wow.
pressed together.
Pressed together. I believe in Luke, the word that he uses is the word that's translated choke. So this was this was not just your friendly little crowd. This was a big crowd pressed together It was choking. And
I can imagine this. I believe this is the Galilee area. This is where Peter's mom was healed. This is where they let the man down through the roof, and there's a crowd around the house. So this is like a swelling, growing thing. It's a phenomena, social phenomena in the area. Everybody's getting to know Jesus, and more people want to know him.
And everybody wants to get close to him at the same time.
Yeah.
You must imagine how hard this must be for Jairus as well. He's trying to take Jesus to his daughter as fast as possible, and they can't move.
And he can't move.
They can't go anywhere, and they're stuck in the middle of this crushing crowd.
And he handled it much better than I would have. I think I would have been tossing people to the left and right. Get out of the way,
I can imagine he's like at the head showing where to go, and the crowd is moving so much slower than he wants them to go.
Yeah. And you can imagine how he's feeling inside. Come on,
Urgency.
let's go. And then we have this woman, and she's been suffering for 12 years with constant bleeding. And it says she suffered a great deal from many doctors over the years and spent everything she had to pay them, but got no better. I tend to think that this woman was an affluent woman. She had some money because it said she spent all her money. And she went to all these doctors for treatment. Would you like to hear some of the treatments? Of course,
Sure.
This comes from the Babylonian Talmud. And I'm not going to read all of these because there is a long, long list of them. It starts out, bring 3 vessels full of Persian onions and boil them in wine and give it to her to drink. And we say to her, stop emitting your discharge. And then it goes on to say, well, if that doesn't work, seat her at a crossroads, and she should take a cup of wine in her hand and let a person come behind her and frighten her and say to her, stop emitting your discharge. And she's paying good money for this. Okay? Then it goes
I'm laughing,
on.
but it's not funny.
It's not funny, but it is funny.
Yeah.
Several cures down, it says, and if this is not effective, let one dig 7 pits and burn young grape shoots in them and place a cup of wine in her hand.
They like wine.
They like wine. It gets better. It gets better. But then they were supposed to take her and carry her from one pit to the other and set her over all these pits. At the same time saying, what? Stop emitting your discharge. And then it goes down. There's a couple more. And it says, and if this is not effective, let one open a barrel of wine for her and let her drink it.
A barrel.
If nothing else works, get her drunk. And these were the cures of the day that she paid good money for.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I'm sure there were also many more that were
there was
expensive.
I
and
read
crazy.
you 4 or 5 of them in there, and there were several that I skipped over. And they were just all bizarre. Mm-hmm. But here she's been doing all this.
Let's pause for a minute. Last week, we asked this question. What about all the people that Jesus didn't heal?
Okay.
And this might be a good time to talk about it, because how long has God not been working through those mechanisms to heal her? 12 years, right?
12 years, yes.
So she's one of these that God hasn't healed.
Mm-hmm.
She's tried all the mechanisms, and maybe, you could say, oh, that's not scientific, that's not really effective. And it wouldn't compare to going to doctors in our day, where they have these magic pills that they give you and tell you to take 2 a day, and hopefully it'll get better. Sometimes I feel like the cures that we're given today are very similar to that. Yeah. And there are so many social media, like, do this and everything will be better. And it's like, really, some of those things are pretty weird and wacky. Mm-hmm. So we have the same kind of stuff today. And yet we go with cancer or with, any number of ailments to the doctor, and we ask for help. And with a large number of people, it does help. And with a good number of people, like, the thing that everybody else is working for everybody else just doesn't work for them. Mm-hmm. And they can go for a long time not getting the help that they need, even though they're seeking help from the doctors of our day that are all scientific and everything like that. So I think there is a comparison. Like, she is doing the best she can to seek help from the best in their field who help people with this kind of stuff. And she's not getting help. Why does God not heal her?
Tyler, what do you think?
There's a lot of different possibilities of what the reasoning is. And I think it's something that we don't know all the answers right now. And that's not necessarily a satisfying answer. But in this case of the woman, maybe it allowed her to come to this moment where it led her to have the faith and trust in Jesus and show his power in a crazy way. And you also have to think another aspect is those 12 years, she also probably was going to the Pharisees and going to the religious leaders too, and trying to get help from God. It wasn't just, these...
Well, the doctors were connected with the church.
Right.
Absolutely.
So she was seeking help from God, seeking help from everyone. And it seemed like there was no answer.
But there's another aspect to this. This woman is unclean. Because of the bleeding, she is deemed unclean, and she's not able to worship.
Yeah, she can't go into the temple. She could probably... I don't know if she could go into the synagogue.
I'm not sure, but
she couldn't offer sacrifice. She couldn't bring her tithe. She couldn't. She couldn't go to the temple for any reason.
People are. She's not supposed to touch anyone.
Yep, and anything that she sits on has to be ceremonially clean.
Yeah.
So nobody's going to want her in their house.
Yeah. So she's being basically shunned by the community for 12 years.
She can't have a husband. Certainly not a child like that. And if she's a young person and has this 12 years, by the end of that time, she's no longer a young person anymore. Mm-hmm. She's not at the prime for things like marrying and childbearing and whatnot.
But she hears that Jesus is coming, and she believes that if she just touches his robe, she'll be healed. And so we've already talked about this crowd. And this woman, after having this for 12 years, you have to imagine that she's probably weak. And she fights her way through this crowd. And she's touching people as she's going through this crowd.
Can't avoid it.
That is a no-no.
Yeah.
If she would have been recognized, they would have probably taken and stoned her. But she has to,
or at least been very mean to her.
At least been very mean, yeah. But she has to get to Jesus, and she fights her way through this crowd and this choking crowd, and she reaches out and she touches the dirtiest part of his garment, the hem that's been dragging along the ground, because she knew if she could touch that, she would be clean. And Jesus feels power going out of him.
So I want to stop your thought there for just a second. Hold on to it. Don't let it go. But we need to talk about the wings, healing in his garment, in the fringes of his garment.
Mm-hmm.
And I say wings because this word is used several times. In Psalms, we find the idea of God as a hen, and he gathers, right?
Yes.
And then Jesus quotes that, and he's like, "How many times would I have gathered you like a mother hen gathers her chicks, but you would not?" And the idea is like under her wings, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll take refuge. So this is like a metaphor for like the protection of God. In I forget where it was, Leviticus, Numbers. I think it's in Numbers, but it talks about the idea of the Israelites putting a fringe on their garment, and the fringe was supposed to be a blue cord, and the blue cord it represented this covenant relationship that they had with God. It was very much about the Ten Commandments, about the law, but it was a connection to the covenant and a reminder that they were a people of the covenant. They weren't just anybody; they were God's people, and that fringe. It's a similar word, a similar root to the idea of wings. So you're walking around with your robe, and a person has wings, not like a bird's wings, but
Right.
they have. Where does your kid go when they're scared of some stranger? They run up to their mom and hide between her legs in the fringes of her garment. And so there's this idea of covering, of protection, and they're in covenant relationship with God. So it is Malachi chapter 4, verse 2. It says, "The Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, in his fringes." So when this woman comes to Jesus and she touches his garment, this isn't just a random idea. This is a biblical idea that the Messiah would come and he would have healing in his fringes. In the edge of his garment, there would be healing. She believes that promise. And so when Jesus, we need to, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, Jesus feels this power going from him. And this is the one spot, we talked about this earlier when we started. Where did Mark get his information? And I'm of the thought that he got his information from Peter because it's fast. I think Peter was the type of guy that moved along quickly, and so we get down to this point, and Jesus realized at once the healing power was gone from him, and he turned around and said, "What? Who touched my robe?" You have this crowd that's packing in, and his disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around. How can you ask who touched me?"
And that disciple who asked him
That disciple who asked, and this is why I think Peter, Mark got his information from Peter, because if you're writing a biography and you come to a point like this, and Peter's telling the story, and he gets to this point, and what's he going to say? Yeah, boy, I looked around and I said, look at this crowd, I'm not going to make myself look foolish. I'm going to say, one of the disciples, just one of them, made this. Luke, however, says it was Peter.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I use to say, yeah, Peter gave this message to Mark.
Yeah.
He did.
When John's writing his gospel, he does something similar. But it's like kind of the opposite. He doesn't reference himself as John. He'll be like the disciple who Jesus loved.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Peter is like a little bit ashamed maybe of his actions, and John is just like a little bit of,
Yeah. And of course, I'm sure everybody just fled at that point. You've seen the experiment of putting salt and pepper in a bowl, and then putting a drop of soap in the bowl, and the pepper just clears off the bowl, and I'm sure this is how it was. Leaving just this woman in the spotlight, and it says he kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. There's another version that says she told him everything. She laid out her life. She said, I've been to this doctor, this doctor, this doctor. Here's what I've been through for the last 12 years. Just laying it all out there. And then he says, daughter. And I don't know if you know this or not. This is the only time in the New Testament where Jesus refers to someone as daughter. He says, you are my children. You're my sons and daughters. But to point to a specific person and call them a son or a daughter, this is the only time that it happens.
How precious.
Yes. He wants her to know, after 12 years of being rejected, being on the fringes of society, he wants her to know that he values her, that she is special, and she is his child.
Yeah.
And I think that's just awesome. You know.
Yeah, and in reading this, when it says she told him everything, I think it seems to me she's probably at the store, and she's telling all about her doctors, and she gets to, and telling about how she knew she needed to come to Jesus.
Yeah.
And she's like, I came and I touched you. And I think she's probably saying, I'm sorry, I know you're unclean now. I know what I did. I know what I've done. She's crying at his feet, and then he comforts her in this beautiful word, daughter.
Yeah.
You're well. I go in peace.
Yeah, she told him everything. How she, probably how she came to hear of him. She didn't leave anything out.
I wonder, you talked about trying to understand the emotions that are involved, and I just think about those emotions. You've had 12 years of an experience, and it's kind of settled in. This is the behavior, the way of dealing with life, the habits that you have. Mm-hmm. She's got to deal with cleaning things all the time, right? She has to deal with a particular way of relating to people all the time. And in this moment that she reaches out and touches in faith, believing the promise, and Jesus says, your faith has made you whole, right? She knows in her body that the issue of blood is ended. But you can imagine she's not clean yet, right? And there's not been very much time, very little evidence to demonstrate the healing is permanent. So even though she's healed and she has this sense, maybe a peace, assurance that things are different, she still has to act in faith. She still has to live with a certain amount of faith. So when she comes to Jesus and says, this is what I've done, she's coming believing that she's been healed. Mm-hmm. And there's the evidence will still follow. Like there's her life is going to change more. What she has seen is very limited view of what healing looks like.
Now, the other question you could ask is, why did he single her out? We were talking earlier about how Jesus walked through villages and everyone was healed. There were other times when, people touched him and they were healed, and he didn't single them out. Why did he single her out?
Well, does this come back to the same question about why does he not heal others? Is it kind of the opposite side of this?
Well, I think it's for a few reasons why he did this. Number one, to kind of quash the thinking that he was superstitious. Somehow his garments were magic.
Oh yeah, okay.
You know,
So your faith has made you whole is kind of identifying that this isn't just a magical robe that he's wearing.
right? Yeah,
Okay.
and I think more importantly, it was to lift her spirits, to give. I mean, for 12 years, she's just been beaten down and, rejected by society. And he wanted her to know, you're special. Had she just touched the garment and went away, sure, she would have been healed, but she wouldn't have that knowledge that she was special in God's eyes.
I'm still thinking about this idea that God doesn't heal everybody. She is special in God's eyes. But what about the person that gets sick and dies, the person that is dealing with a long-term illness, there's constant pain in their life, and God doesn't heal them? And I think that some people think that there's a measure of faith that God has to honor. And so if we come with the right words, with the right Bible verses, with the right promises that we're aware of, and we, touch the garment or say the words or, have the elders do the anointing, then because we're faithful, because we have faith, that God is required to heal us. And that doesn't always work out. I think of James chapter 5, and it's verses 13 and following where James is saying, if you're suffering, pray. If you're happy, sing praises. If you're sick, call for the elders and have them pray over you, anointing you with oil in the name of the Lord. And verse 15, it says, such a prayer offered in faith will heal the sick. And the Greek word there for heal is sozo, and it means save. It also can be used for healing. It is physical restoration, but also spiritual restoration. And then in English Standard Version and New King James and others, it'll say, and the Lord will raise them up. In this one, it says, the Lord will make you well, the New Living Translation. But I like that idea that the prayer of faith will save the sick and the Lord will raise them up. Because sometimes it happens right then, like the man by the pool of Bethesda. Mm-hmm. Jesus comes to him, do you want to be well? Yeah, well, stand up, take up your bed and go home. He does, and he's well. And it's right there. He literally raises him up. But other times, it doesn't happen in this life. A person suffers and they die. And we can be sad about that and wonder, why didn't God save them? He saved this woman with the issue of blood. Why not, this other guy? And I think that your answer is really important. We don't know. And it's not necessarily the case that we will know. Like it may be that you find out that the reason God has allowed you to experience the suffering that you've experienced is for some specific thing in your heart or in somebody else's. And it may also be that you never know. But the promise is that when Jesus comes back again, all who believe in him, he will raise up. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And so the saving the sick and the raising up might happen in this moment. We should have faith. God can do it. But we should also have faith if he doesn't do it, that God will raise them up at the last day when Jesus comes.
I think that gets to the other question of, why does bad things happen to good people? Who knows? I'm not God. I can't give you the answer to that.
God is always good, mm-hmm. and will always bring good out of the circumstances that we face in life.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's not good yet, it's because it's not the end yet.
Yep. Yep.
And in this case, the woman suffered for 12 years, and God allowed that. And in the moment that he healed her, she experienced connection and safety and protection and peace and belonging and all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
And but her faith led her to Jesus, and Jesus gave her those things. And I guarantee, I think that I can be reasonably confident here, that everybody can have that experience. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from. If you go to Jesus in faith, then you can experience the same things she experienced. And part of it is belonging and connection and protection, and part of it is healing. And it may be that he heals you today when you go to him. Or it may be that he heals you at the resurrection when you go to him. Either one is okay, but go to him in faith and trusting in his divine wisdom, and your life is going to be best in that context, in his fringes, at his the edge of his robe, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right after this happens, a messenger comes and says, "Your daughter's dead. Don't bother Jesus anymore. It's over." And and
Jairus has been watching this whole thing play out with a delay.
yeah,
The woman, Jesus stops the crowd, like this whole conversation happens. She tells him everything, and Jairus is like,
come on, yeah.
tapping his feet and
And then the messenger
anxious.
comes and says, "Sorry, it's over." But Jesus overheard and said, "Don't be afraid, just have faith."
that word troubled. Is that what you're thinking of?
No.
No, they said, don't trouble the teacher now. And I think that's an important word. Sometimes we feel like if I ask for help for this thing, it's just a bother, a nuisance. And we do that with each other, but I think we also do it with God.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to know about my keys that I just lost. Let me find them. Like, don't trouble him. And I think that's not the way that God sees this. Jesus wasn't troubled by the man asking. He was delighted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing I think of, when Jesus responds, he overheard and said, "Don't be afraid and have faith." He's pointing him back to what he just said to the woman, that your faith has made you well. And this story of the woman being healed, and because of her faith, I'm sure it was an encouragement to Jairus as well, and reminding him that Jesus can and will and is going to work in her life, in his daughter's life.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do we hear Jesus say, "Don't be afraid"? Every time you turn around, Jesus is saying, "Don't be afraid." We talked about this last week. There was so much fear in that story.
Yeah.
There were two people that weren't afraid, Jesus and the man who got healed. And he's saying here, don't be afraid.
Don't we do this all the time? We like get anxious about things that, we anticipate what might go wrong. And so we get anxious and we just kind of cultivate anxiety. And Jesus is like, be anxious for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Just give it to him.
Yeah.
And
Then I think about the next verse when Jesus stopped the crowd. And Jesus could have definitely done this earlier. Why do you think that Jesus didn't stop the crowd earlier and go faster?
He wanted that woman.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He gave her time.
And I think there's also another aspect of it gave Jairus the opportunity to exercise more faith and to grow more.
Yeah.
It gives enough time for this girl to go from really sick and urgently needing healing to falling asleep in death. And then Jesus is able to do something that is you cannot like just brush that aside and say, oh, well, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like this is like raising somebody from the dead.
That's like with Lazarus. They came to him and Lazarus is sick. Well, now Lazarus is dead and he's been in the grave for, several days. And it's almost like you want to see something good. Just watch this. This is going to be good.
It's interesting, the stories of Jesus raising people from the dead in the New Testament. There's Jairus' daughter. There's the man, is the word Nain, widow of Nain?
The widow of Nain, yes.
Yeah. Her son is being taken out to the tomb, so this girl has died and maybe has been dead for a couple hours at the most. The widow's son, probably he's been dead for many hours. They would probably have buried him within 24 hours. So it's within the first day. Whereas Lazarus, he's been in the tomb for 4 days.
Yeah.
And so they are pretty confident that he's going to be decomposing. So the first resurrection is like, well, maybe she wasn't really dead. The second one, they were pretty confident that he was dead, but he hadn't like started to decompose, so there was no confidence there. You could second guess it, but by the time you get to Lazarus, there is no doubt.
No doubt at all. No.
Yeah, and in the mind of the Sadducees, I believe it took after 3 days, like the spirit left the body or something like that. Some weird idea of that in the Sadducees' mind. So after that time, in everyone's mind in that culture, they were dead beyond resuscitation. And that's when Jesus heals Lazarus.
So the Sadducees must have that idea because they don't believe in the resurrection. Mm-hmm. So if you rise after just a little bit, then you weren't really dead. Yeah. So they can ignore the resurrection idea. Okay.
So Jesus stops the crowd, won't let them go any further except for Peter, James, and John. What about the other disciples?
Crowd management.
Well, I never thought about that, but yeah, maybe so. Maybe they formed a barrier there and kept the crowd back. And he gets to the house, and there's all this commotion and weeping and wailing. And I'm under the impression that there's some societies that used to hire professional mourners that would come in and make a big noise. And I just wonder if this was part of the case. There were some...
probably there's another, maybe there could be professionals, but it's also a societal thing. Just like we have things that we do. Before you have a baby, we're going to host a baby shower for you. Mm-hmm. We don't hire people to host the baby shower. We just, as a community, we gather together and we do that because it's what's done. And I think that probably that was what the case with this man. He's got people connected to his family through the synagogue, relatives and whatnot that know that she is deathly ill, and they've gathered, kind of in this last throes of her life. And I think that probably it's those people who are wailing and performing this service because they're part of the community of this family.
And wherever these people come from, it's obviously a lot of people. It uses the word the crowd. It's a crowd of people, and it's much commotion. And he just left a big crowd, and he gets to a new crowd.
Yeah,
and he disperses the new crowd as well.
And he says, why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead. She's only sleeping. And everybody laughs at him.
Because they know she's dead.
They know she's dead. Yeah.
And Jesus uses the same motif when he talks about Lazarus. Mm-hmm. He tells the disciples, he's sleeping, but I'm going that I can wake him up. And they're like, oh, good. He must be better. That's great. And Jesus is like, no. He's dead. Mm-hmm. So even though Jesus is saying she's not dead, she's just asleep, what he's saying is this is not the final death, that there is a resurrection. And the Bible indicates there's two types of death. There's the sleep death before the resurrection, and everybody dies the sleep death, good and bad, and everybody is raised to life, good and bad, according to Matthew 25 and Revelation 20 and I guess 19 and 20. So everybody experiences the resurrection, the sleep death and the resurrection. But then there's the second death, and there is no resurrection after the second death. And so I think Jesus can legitimately say, she's not dead, second death, forever gone. Mm-hmm. There is a resurrection, and he demonstrates that.
Yeah. And then, of course, he raises her up, and I find it very interesting. It says, he told them to give her something to eat. Child must be famished. Give her some food, you know. There's some parallels here also between these. The girl was 12 years old. The woman had suffered for 12 years.
Oh, yeah.
And they were both daughters. The daughter of Jairus and the daughter
Jesus
of
calls them
Jesus.
daughters. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's more parallels in there. But I find this story just to be fascinating.
I like the words that Jesus uses. Peter, which is apparently telling the story and was present, he says that Jesus said, Talitha cum.
Yeah.
And that Talitha, he translates it as little girl, get up. But I think a more literal translation is little lamb. It's a pet name. It's a nickname. And that's the kind of thing you do affectionately for a child.
Yeah.
And Jesus treats her with, and he's not just this distant God or this powerful teacher, this guy that crowds want to follow. He's the guy that like looks in the eyes of a kid, takes her hand and calls her a nickname and smiles and says, get him some food. Like he cares about the kids. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. He cares about everyone from the littlest to the greatest, and he just he's helping the Pharisee as well, but his daughter. And then he also just helped a woman who's the outcast of society, and he's showing that he cares about everyone, from the least important to the little girls, the outcasts, all the way to the Pharisees as well. He wants everyone.
And then, of course, he wraps this up by saying, don't tell anybody.
Yeah. I always find that interesting that he does that. There's several miracles that he's done, and he says, don't tell anybody.
He's got a great crowd that just left the dead girl. They're going to know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe he's trying to protect him from being ostracized by the other Pharisees for seeking his help, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's always a reason for it. And I think that we're always best when we follow God's plan, when we do what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah. Thanks for leading us today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the last time we have Tyler with us.
I'm going to miss you. You bring a lot to the conversation.
It's been great being here. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Yeah. So you're going to go and you're going to do some canvassing work this summer.
Yeah.
And I hear that you just found out that you're going to be one of the junior leaders.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
What was the thing we learned today? Be anxious for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I have to trust God, and he's teaching me that each and every day. Even better.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll definitely be praying for you as you go and do that ministry this summer.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, until next time.